Hey everybody, Bonehead for the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Star Player Spotlight, Kiroth, Krakeneye. We are looking at every star player available in Blood Bowl 2020, whether they're from a Spike magazine, the rulebook, or just Forge World releases, like our buddy here, Kiroth Krakeneye. So Kiroth was available in the previous edition of Blood Bowl and is playable in Blood Bowl 3. However, he's been released by Forge World, and his stats are even better than they are on the digital game. So the Kiroth Krakeneye for the tabletop is different than Blood Bowl 3. So let's have a look at Kiroth Krakeneye. Okay, so Kiroth was available in the last edition, Blood Bowl 2016, and he was a really cool star player. The whole idea of Kiroth is that he was a Dark Elf blitzer on a team, and they went underwater, played some Squig people, they lost the Squig people game, or they won the Squig people game, but basically the Squid people gave him this magical helmet with tentacles on. So he is an enchanted Dark Elf blitzer with a magic hat. He's obviously based on one of the classic Warhammer Fantasy Battles 6th or 7th edition Dark Elf heroes from the sort of Dark Elf Corsairs. And it was so cool to see him join Blood Bowl, and it was so cool to see him come back in Blood Bowl 3. But there was one key thing in Blood Bowl 3 where Kiroth didn't feel quite right. I questioned it, we had a chat about it on the podcast, and that was around him having Agility 3+. In Blood Bowl 3, this Dark Elf, this Elven player, this Elven Blitzer, has Agility 3+. That didn't sit right with me. And now he's released for tabletop, we can see that wasn't right. That wasn't right at all. This guy does actually have Ag 2+. So Kiroth Krakeneye can be on a Elven Kingdoms team. So Wood Elves, High Elves, Teams of Legend. You've got Dark Elves, and you've got the Elven Union. They can all take him. He is Movement 7, Strength 3, Ag 2+, Passing 3+, which is phenomenally good for a standard elf player, and Armor 9+. Passing 3+ is kind of, your B tier passer rating, your A+ lineman rating, so like the Elven, what is it, the High Elf guys have got Passing 3+. The Blitzers don't normally have Passing 3+. The Elven Union ones do. Dark Elves don't. So it's really cool to see him with a good passing stat as well. So he is 160k for a 7/3, 2+, 3+, 9+ player. So that is a Dark Elf Blitzer with better passing for 160k. Okay, that's not a bad place to start. Let's have a look at some skills. So, he's got Disturbing Presence and Foul Appearance. They're both representative of his fancy hat. The idea being that he's scary, and it's weird to see an elf with a animatronic faceplate, which I can't disagree with, really. So, Disturbing Presence and Foul Appearance. Foul Appearance means that when your opponent wants to target him either as a block or a blitz, they've got to roll a 2+. Now, that may not be the most terrifying thing in the world, but if that is a 1, it's going to cost your opponent one of their rerolls, or it's going to cost them their blitz action, and it's just going to save them every now and again. If you've played against Nurgle, you'll know what I mean. It's a free roll. Now, perfect defense. Disturbing Presence is really good. You've got the 3 squares either side of him, just gives that negative modifier to handling the ball for your opponent. So you've got a Dark Elf Blitzer who is making it harder for your opponent to pass and catch when they are within 7 squares and a sphere of him. It's a pretty potent thing, and it's actually very useful. That little bit of Disturbing Presence is going to cause that turnover, just that little -1 is going to help you. It's going to help your opponent just mess up. And when you were playing with an Elven team, or a Wood Elf team, or a Dark Elf team, or a High Elf team, when the ball's on the floor, it becomes very much up for grabs, and Kiroth himself, Ag 2+ Movement 7, is going to be able to swoop in and take the opportunities when they drop them. So Disturbing Presence is going to be a massive boon. Foul Appearance is just going to cause your opponent some grievances. Loner 4+ is exactly what you expect for a star player. That's pretty much by the by. No block on this player. So he is a Dark Elf Blitzer, but he doesn't have block. What he does have is Tackle and Tentacles. He's also got On the Ball, we'll talk about that in a second, but Tackle and Tentacles gives you a weird little subset of skills. Now, we've seen Games Workshop kind of head in this direction with the star players of late. We saw with a grasp double draw, with bad agility, bless him, but that kind of skill set. Tackle and tentacles on a strength 3, edge 2+ movement 7 player. I'm a Skaven coach, right? I love my gutter runners, and that is an absolute pain. Movement 7 is fast enough to put him somewhere that you want him to be. Disturbing presence is going to really interfere with that handling of the ball. Foul appearance is going to make it difficult for you to block him away. And then if your gutter runner, if your scoring player, if your vampire runner wants to escape, tackle is going to take away your dodge reroll. Tentacles, again, it's not the most consistent thing in the world. It's not going to work every single time, but it's another dice roll that gives another opportunity for you. It to all go wrong for your opponent. Tentacles, triggers, he follows up, and then your opponent has to make another vanilla dodge roll with no dodge steal because of tackle, and it just keeps applying that. So Kiroth becomes a really aggravating player, and 160k for, I mean, 100k's worth of stats for a star player is really good already. So you've got an additional piece of movement 7 with strength 3, tackle, who's going to be able to just be an effective sweeper. So for defense, Kiroth Krakeneye is a brilliant toolkit player. And then you've got on the ball. And I love OTB. OTB is a fantastic skill for offense and for defense. So no matter which team you're running, well, when you receive the ball, Kiroth Krakeneye is going to get 3 free squares of movement. Can't cross the line of scrimmage, I believe. Been playing a lot of 7s recently, so that'll do the trick. Can't cross the line of scrimmage in a standard 11s game, but it's going to allow him to redeploy, or you're playing elves, right? So you're likely to be at a point where you're down a few players and you've got less players kicking about. So OTB is going to allow to just cover a gap, or because he is an edge 2+ piece, I know he's got loner, but it doesn't really matter. Like, if you roll a 1, there's no point re-rolling it because you're going to roll another 1. So when it comes to Kiroth, he's actually a really good defensive player. And quite frankly, at a push, he's not a bad offensive piece as well. Because ultimately, what's going to happen is he's got 3 extra squares. So he's movement 10 on receiving of the ball. So you can even use Kiroth to be the ball receiver and then deliver that ball to one of your star players. Now, that's something that we see when we use stars is a bit of a negative, as you take Griff, and Griff scores all the touchdowns, and my league team doesn't get any SPP. Well, Kiroth is just going to stick around in aggravating places, force turnovers, force mistakes, and then actually you've got an offensive position there as well where he can just have 10 movement when you receive the ball. He can get the ball to your thrower, to your blitzer, who can do the actual scoring and get you your SPP. And then there's the last piece here with on the ball. It's a very effective defensive skill. When your opponent makes a pass action, he gets to move 3 squares. Now you got to dodge and stuff, and that's fine. He's edge 2+. So when your opponent makes a throw, you've got a disturbing presence piece where you can move him to get in the way of your opponent catching the ball. You've got tentacle and tackles to put them on the target receiver as well. And we're talking a 7 square wide area. That's the entire center of the pitch. If Kiroth Krakeneye is in the middle of the center zone, he's basically got the pitch covered. Whoever your opponent is throwing the ball to, Kiroth Krakeneye is going to be on him, or disturbing presence is going to be there as well. If Kiroth gets onto that player, you've got -1 for a tackle zone, -1 for disturbing presence, and then if they try and escape, you've got tackle and tentacles to deal with as well. So I'm really impressed. 160k is a really solid price point for a really useful star player. He's not going to win all the games, but your opponent's going to know he's there, and he's going to give you some options that a young team in League may not have. He does have a special ability, so Black Ink. Once per game at the start of any of his activations, Kiroth can choose an opposition that he is marking. An opposition player that he's marking, the chosen player loses their tackle zone until they are next activated. So basically, once per game at the start of any of his activations, he can automatically hypno-gaze somebody. You may be thinking, I don't care. You should care. If you've been playing vampire games recently, you will know why. Taking away your tackle zones means that players can run past you. Taking away your tackle zones means that several of the main skills in the game get turned off. And it's just another egregious little power play that he can make. So Black Ink is going to come up, and it's going to come up most of your games. The difficulty is that he has to be in base contact at the start of an activation. So Hypnogaze is great for taking a corner off a cage. Kiroth is not going to be able to do that unless he's already on the corner of the cage. He's got foul appearance, he's strength 3 and he's armor 9+, so I guess there's a chance he can be sticking around, but it's always risky to put your star players just at base-to-base contact. There's always been the risk with Hypnogaze, is to make it work best, I've got to leave my guy as just a waiting, just a juicy target for a free block. You don't necessarily want to be doing that with Kiroth, but the fact that he's got tackle and disturbing presence and foul appearance and tentacles means that he is going to be in the mix. And 160k, that's pretty good. Okay, so you want to run Kiroth Krakeneye on your team. The Forge World model is beautiful. Games Workshop have been doing such a good job recently with their star players. I can't remember when it started, but every single one they've dropped recently has been absolutely brilliant. So if you want the proper model, do you know what? Excellent. He's a lovely model, tons of detail, and really nice to paint up. So actually Kiroth from Games Workshop is brilliant. But if you want something different, you want something cheaper or whatever, my recommendation is probably the Ugly one. So this is Walter Krakenberg, I think, and actually solid piece, solid star player. Not the face tentacles, has the head tentacles instead, but it's a really cool model. So if you've got a 3D printer, you can hunt him down from Ugly. If you don't have a 3D printer, you can get him from us, from the shop, or anywhere else on Etsy, I imagine. But there is also one other very cool model, but it's not quite out yet because this is... No, that is the Games Workshop model. That is out. Have we got... Oh, have I not downloaded it? I haven't downloaded it. That's the Red Zone logo. It's the Punga. The Punga star player. From their last Kickstarter. Not available for general release yet, but when it is, definitely worth a pickup. Okay, so Kiroth is landing. He's landed. He's available. 160k is a brilliant buy. For leagues, going to be really useful. For tournaments, I don't see him being something you want to build your whole team around. When it comes to having Elven Kingdoms, you've got Glorial, who you can build a team around. You've got Eldril. You've got the Swift Twins, who are significantly more expensive, I'll give you that. But when it comes to him being 160k, if you can and want to squeeze him into a roster, he's going to provide a lot of skills for not a lot of money with actually a really good stat line. I don't expect to see a ton of him at tournaments. Although having tentacles and foul appearance and disturbing presence and tackle is actually really useful. I don't see him winning games in the same way that Griff does. But I see him being the reason you win games. And I see him being a really useful support for a league team as well. We have the classic saying, right, 150k. Is it better than a wizard? Kiroth Krakeneye? Definitely is. So, I like him. I'm glad he's here, and I'm more than just, I'm over the moon that he's got Edge 2+. Edge 3+ was fine. You can use him on Blood Bowl 3 with Edge 3+. Edge 2+, though, you've got a Dark Elf Blitzer without block and a ton of different skills instead, and that is awesome. Anyway, let me know what you think of Kiroth, and we'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking, unless you're Kiroth. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the channel even further, please like and subscribe. It really does help us out. Or come join us on YouTube Members or in Patreon, where you can get exclusive access to some content, some loot, early access to basically everything we do, as well as regular competitions. Or you can pick up some Bonehead Podcast loot either on our website at boneheadpodcast.com. We've got the Dungeon Bowl things, we've got tokens and stuff like that, or on our Spreadshirt site as well. Everything you do just helps us make more content and hopefully do it of better quality. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Happy blocking.